Hi, I'm here to bring you something a little different from my usual content in the form of a deck profile. A deck profile for a deck very close and near to my heart, and one that is actually playable again in the next format of Darkwing Blast next week, which is Branded Bestial. Now, these cards are obviously generically really powerful in the form of DD Crows, but they're also really strong in general, in Branded, and also in Dragon Maid, funny enough, and in anything else that can play dragons. I would say Dragon Link, but Hulk and Chaos Ruler say hi. So, let's just get straight into it. It's pretty simple with the branded side of things, but I'll just run over again in case you don't really know how the branded stuff works, and then I can show a couple of combo things afterwards. So, first off, we've got obviously one ad-lib for our unusual recycling of Mirror Jade combo with Branded in red and Chimera. We're still doing that. We're still doing the normal Mirror Jade setup alongside the Bestial players on a turn 1, so we do play ad-lib as the follow-up to bring back Mirror Jade and stuff like it. There's obviously a lot of other stuff you can arrive at, it's usually going to be Mirror Jade. One Albion, so this is usually played for the branded Lost applications in normal builds, but we don't really need it for that anymore. We're playing it here because it sets up our branded Regained in the graveyard, and as well as a couple other things if we need them to be. It sets up Albaz in the graveyard as a target for red, which helps us play through interruptions, and it sets up Opening Engrave as a way to play through popping and stuff. Particularly in the mirror, that's kind of good, but there's a lot of other effects that pop, of course. So that's just in there as like, it's a very useful thing to foolish, just stuff out and an upstart. So we just play the one. It's also a useful target for a variety of things, so we don't need the Lost build centered around it, it's just a nice thing to have. 3 Aliber, of course, don't really need to explain it, it searches fusion. 3 Tragedy, don't need to really explain it. Some people play 2, I like 3, I like maximizing the chance, especially that Opening plus Tragedy is full Bisted brand combo here, so it's really, really good. 2 Branded in red, normal ratio of a normal setup. 3 Branded fusion, obviously. I'm playing 3 Super Poly, of course. Like, in this format it's very necessary. Obviously in the format changes to one that you don't need to beat tier every game, then you're not going to be playing this in the main, probably siding it though, because it's really, really good in Branded, especially with the Bestial summoning on your opponent's turn. We play Foolish and a Call by the Grave, obviously, and I'm playing 3 Allure as my Slexor here. We don't really play hand traps in here, you don't really need to. You technically are playing hand traps, you've got the Bestials, but you don't need to play anything else. So just play the Law as a way to just keep digging through the deck too, especially to hit Bestials if we don't draw enough of them, which can be a problem every once in a while. So, with the actual new cards in the main, we're playing 3 Magnamut. This is a DD Crow that special summons itself and searches any dragon from deck or grave. So you can use this to search Albion, you can use it to add back Bestials from grave if you run out, you can use it to search Albaz in a pinch, but most often you're going to be using it to search specifically Lubellion. Now Lubellion is a rota by itself, so you're playing this at 3 of course as well, so if you open this, or if you add it with Magnamut, you can pitch it to search any of the Bestials, and then it puts itself in grave and setup. You can special from the grave by tributing any Bestial or an Albion or one of the extra deck fusions, and then it summons itself, and then it can set place from deck any of the branded spell traps, so it can place Branded Regained, or it can place Branded Beast. And Branded Beast, particularly if, like, here's where the Albion stuff comes in, like Albion can Foolish rebranded, and then Beast in the end phase can place it from the graveyard on the field. So Lubellion's really, really, really important, and I'll show how insane this is in terms of the combo in a second. The main thing I can say is that you use this to tribute Albion in the fusion combo, and then you guarantee Branded in red without having to spend your Mirror Jade on the turn, which plays through interruption really, really well. Compared to before, if you wanted to guarantee Branded in red, you'd have to risk really hard losing to stuff like Crow and Called By. 2 Albas, of course, I don't think I mentioned it, but we normally play 3 in other builds, but now you don't actually need 3, because it's a lot more safe from the hand traps, and you don't really need to optimally draw him this time. You don't need to have him in hand all the time like we used to. 2 Saronir. Now, this is the weaker of the Bistids. The only reason that you play it is really that it does the setup of, it can dump a Lubellion to grave if you need it to, so it's mostly just this additional name, but it does do some useful things, which is why we're not just playing it at 1. So it foolishes either Lubellion or one of the other names just to get stuff in grave to banish, or it can put the Branded Regained in the grave, or Beast in the grave if you're trying to access those. You're never really going to Foolish Beast because you don't really have a way of recycling it, but it's really good to dump this in the grave. You can also play a Branded Lost build, and then this does have the same effect of bringing Lost back from the grave. I'm just not playing it here, I don't feel like it's needed, and you would go over 40 cards, and I think the deck does its best at 40. And lastly, we're playing Druid Worm at 3. This sends any card from field to grave, sends a special summon from field to grave. Like, this is really, really, really good. This is the main one you're going to be trying and searching. You want ideally to have Magnum in your opening hand, and then you're going to be trying to search this in the end phase and have this unfollowed for your opponent's turn. You'll summon this by hopefully interrupting them if they're on tier, and then if they put a monster up or a spell up, you can Beast Tribute the worm, and then the worm gets to send a monster. So you get 2 removals and a DD Crow for 2 cards, which is really, really good. Moving on to the extra deck, we're playing a Lenatus because if you want to dump multiple cards to the grave, you can dump both Lenatus and Albion in the same turn, and you get 2 search instead of 1 if you end up having to search, send 2 Albion or whatever, and I think it's the best of the options to send it as an Albion. And second is that it might come up if people are playing a lot of the Bestials. This might change if people aren't really on Bestial as much as they are on the OCG, but as they are as much as the OCG is, then this will be really good sometimes just to contact fuse a whole Bestial board away, and especially in the mirror, this will be incredibly powerful to just get rid of your opponent's entire board. Like, if you put an Albaz on board, like, you can set an Albaz, and your opponent now has to beast it if it's in the mirror, because if they don't, you can fuse away the whole board and it turns off the trap completely. Albion we're playing at 2, pretty normal ratio there. Queritus playing 1, pretty normal ratio there. There's no reason to cut this, it's still a really good card to put on board sometimes. Garura will be a super poly target. Chimera we're only playing 1 now, because we don't rely so much on resolving that line, and there isn't really the space for it to fit in with everything else. 2 Rebellion, pretty normal. We only really have space for 1 Masquerade anymore, but we're not trying to turbo out Masquerade as like the 3rd piece of the board anymore. Like, we're ending on a significant board that isn't just Mirror Jade now, so we can afford to cut back on the stuff like Masquerade, which was only really useful as a finisher tool at the competitive level anyway. Mirror Jade, pretty normal to ratio. Mud Dragon, another super poly target. Dragon's Pelio, super poly target, and a Braddon red target, pretty useful, pretty powerful still. Another new card is Wallow. I don't remember what this exact TCG name is, but yeah, so this is a new rank 6, and basically what it does is, yes, you can't summon this turn 1, which you're usually not going to be summoning this turn 1. So it's basically on turn 2 or 3 or whatever, if you don't get out fusion on that turn, you can summon this using any 2 Bestials, and it makes a guy that gives you a massive attack and defense boost, and it also just can just steal or banish anything from the opponent's grave. Incredibly powerful effect, and I think this card's going to be really, really good. So this isn't a mandatory inclusion, but I think it's going to be really, really, really nice, and I definitely recommend trying it out. And then next we have Heretic Seal, another card that's an optional. You can maybe play more fusions, but I think this is really, really powerful as well. You could put out 2 Bestials or stuff similar, maybe an Albion, maybe an Albaz, link them off into this, and this will bounce a card, and then it can also summon out your Druid Worm to send another card to your opponent controls, or it can summon out Magnamut, which gets you another search. So you get a lot of options there. You could even summon out Albaz potentially. Like, this is a really, really nice effect now that we couldn't really take advantage of before. And even if your opponent shotgun imperms this on their turn, you can tribute this with Beast and it will get the second effect to summon from deck, because it just has to be tributed, not by its own effect. Okay, well, I could talk about the side deck, but honestly, this could change a lot, and I think side decks are something you should really think about for each individual main event you're going to. For a general sort of locals thing, you could probably just try whatever you think is going to work best at your local scene, so I'm not going to recommend a specific thing for the side here, because it's really going to depend on the format of the event you're going to. But this is just sort of the general thing I'm looking at. I will say that the reason I'm playing Fenrir in the side here is Fenrir is a really powerful card, but it's really not that good in this deck, because say you're going second, which is when you would usually want to summon this, you can do like whatever sort of plays. Your opponent starts their plays, they're playing say Tearlament, they put Darks in the grave and you Bestial them. The end of their turn, you still have a Bestial on the board, you now cannot summon your Fenrir. This card is just so unable to be summoned a lot of the time because you're playing so many Bestial names that I don't think it's worth it to main. I probably, if it ends up being insane regardless, from a lot more testing, a lot more rigorous IRL play, then maybe that'll change, but I think for now, it's not worth risking the main. I think it's too bricky, especially with, as this deck has always struggled with, is too many high-level monsters. That's why we're not playing Dramaturge here. We just cannot afford to run too many high-level monsters that cannot be summoned. This is already, like, a dangerous level. There will be hands in this deck where you just open Bestial names and you can't do anything because you just open Bestials. But they won't happen that often, and this is like the breaking point you can get to before it's just too many names, too many high levels, and I think putting in 3 more level 7s that oftentimes won't be able to be summoned just is too much of a risk. Alright, so let me show you some of the combos you can do and basic line of play in the first turn play that you will want to be doing with the deck. So here I'm going to show you how to do your basic turn 1 board with Aluber and any discard. In this case we've chosen one that's beneficial to us, but this will be pretty typical as just opening one that's just any Bestial. So we'll normal Aluber. We're going to add the Branded Fusion as per usual. We're going to activate the Branded Fusion, and we'll be sending here a Lubellion as a light target instead of going for the normal Tragedy line, and I'll explain why. So Snow was actually a significant hit to the deck, actually, but not anymore because we have a new light target, and you don't really need to play Snow anymore. I think you probably would if it was legal, but you don't really need to worry about it. Lubellion's really, really good. So, the reason that we're not going for Tragedy here is that we don't actually really need to, because here we can go into Albion. And with Albion effect, we can banish the Dark that we have in Albaz, and we can banish the Albaz to make Lubellion. Our Lubellion will pitch our cost, and then we simply return to bring out our Mirror Jade. Now this isn't that unusual, this was done before. Now, we actually have Saronir live here, which would then send our copy of Branded Regained. Now this is not too unusual of a board that would have made, but you would normally have stuff like the Patchwork Engine, which would fuse away the Albion maybe, but here we're guaranteeing this will always be successful, because what we can do here is tribute the Albion to bring back our Lubellion, and then with our Lubellion on the field we can use its effect to just place our beast from deck on the field, and then in the end phase we can Albion or the Branded Inbred, and we can use the effect of Beast to get Branded Regained on the field. So that's off of just 1 plus Saronir. Of course, you're not guaranteed to have the Regained here, but that's off of just Aluber plus any discard you're going to end on Mirror Jade, plus the Beast life, because it can tribute Lubellion for a pop. You've got Branded Red isn't currently live, but you've got 4 of the cards in hand, and you have this live that when you banish something with a Bestial or something else, you get to draw a card, and if you have any Bestial in grave and your opponent summons something, you get to revive it. So this is a sort of board you're usually going to be trying to go for. Okay, so this is just the first one that I got, and we're just going to see where it goes. So we're going to do something a bit daring, which I always like to do. We're going to go for a lore, and yeah, we just something that doesn't really matter here. So we're going to go Aluber here, and so what's interesting here is we're probably going to go down a Saronir line. So we could go for a variety of things, like this one, this situation where you could be lost if you're playing it, but we're not. So we are going to get the Branded Regained, and then we will activate that. We will fire off our Fusion, and dump the Albaz and the Lubellion. We will go for Albion. We'll Albion banish the Aluber and the Albaz. We'll Lubellion. And we do get to Chainbuckle Lubellion here, not that it matters that much, and pitch anything. Here we're going to get a beast anyway, so we can just pitch this, and we get to rebrand it actually to put this Aluber that was banished back on the bottom of the deck and draw a card. And then we get to put this other one back, and put this back, and get our Mirror Jade. We'll then do the same as usual, Albion, get Lubellion, and then we'll Lubellion grab our trap. And so we do actually have these for follow-up if we need them, but we have a Super Bowl here, so we can just go for follow-up or for something that gets these in grave. On our opponent's turn, we set the opening, go to our opponent's draw phase, flip up opening, pitch the Magnamut, get a Aluber, and then we get to put the red in our hand, and then we have an Aluber engraver next turn. We have still the Druid Worm live. We have something to revive if our opponent summons something with the Regained, and yeah. So this is the basic sort of build you're going for. As you can see, it's pretty standard again, like it used to be. I'm sure with other builds you could do some different stuff, like with Lost you can search the Mercuria and things, and especially with Photon Hypernova, there's a lot of other options we get. But yeah, so other cards you could consider are the Lost, the Mercuria, and the Cartesia. I'm not really sure about them. I think they're definitely something you have to consider in Photon Hypernova when we get 2 different support cards for them, but right now I'm really not sure about them. You can definitely experiment with them, like being able to search Lost through Lubellion or through Saranir is really strong and definitely makes it a lot more useful, a lot more reliable than it would be without. But I don't feel like I really want to go over the 40 cards, and then you're starting to cut Bestial names, which makes your deck less effective against tier, or cutting stuff like Allure, and I really like having the Allure for digging. So I don't know, you could definitely try them. So yeah, that's Branded Bestial, a deck that I think is actually a very relevant meta contender that you should be watching out for going into the format for Darkwing Blast. Is it still going to be when we go into the next format 2 weeks later? Only time will tell, but with all hope they will actually do something about Tearlament in the next few months. I'm glad to see that the deck is able to do things again, I hope others are too, and please let me know how well this does for you, and let me know your thoughts on the archetype and what you would change or maybe try out in your own builds, and I'll probably make another list when we get deeper into the format. But for now, that's all I got, and yeah, happy hunting. My lawyers have let me know that the Bestial Rebellion is an extremely expensive card in pre-sale, and if it gets popular because of this profile and profiles like it, then it'll only go up in value. So please, actually, this deck sucks. Don't play it. Don't this deck's terrible. Awful card. Please sell your copies for $2 to me directly,